Hi, welcome back. In today's video, we'll be going over some important side information relating to layers. Starting off, I'll be talking about raster and vector layers. Rasters and vectors are important design terms that you should know. Rasters are layers that contain a set amount of pixels. So things like screenshots or photos are rasters because they're made of pixels, which you can see if you zoom in and look at all these different individual colored squares. The more pixel dense a raster is, the easier it'll be to see certain things, and that's because everything's more defined. For this 6000 by 4000 pixel image, you can clearly make out the people and light post in the background. But if you're to drastically resize this image, or any raster, you'd ruin the quality of the image, because you'd be changing the original pixel density. Making this image way smaller will make it harder to see the background details, because there's less pixels per inch to define those details. Also, if you tried resizing this photo back to its original size, you'd notice that the quality is worse than how it was originally. I'll show you a method later on how you could maintain the original quality with something called smart objects, but that'll be later on. Moving on, vectors are layers whose lines and curves are made from connected points and mathematical formulas. So anything made from paths, like the preset shapes, or any shape you make with the pen tool, are vectors. Vector layers can be drastically resized and still maintain their quality, because the math formulas making them up can be scaled up or down. For example, with this vector layer, I could resize it a bunch of times and still maintain its quality. You'll notice that everything's still crisp and sharp. But if I rasterize the layer and try to resizing it, it'd become very pixelated and lose the quality. Relating to that, if you have a very simple raster graphic element and would like to always maintain its quality, you can make a vector copy of that raster. Using the pen tool and setting your tool mode to shape, make a pen path outline around your raster element. For now, set your fill and your stroke to no color. This will make creating an outline easier. We can change those options later when we're done outlining. If you want to add or remove from your closed path, you should click out of your layer, go to Path Operations, and click on the option you want. Either combine shapes to add something on, or subtract front shape to remove something. So since I still have stuff to add, like this other side of this logo and this eye, I'll choose Combine Shapes. Then I'll just click back on the layer and make the rest of the outline. Okay, so now I got this part outlined now, and the only part left I have to add is this eye. So what I can do is just use the ellipse tool, set it to combine shapes, and then just outline that eye. Oh, wrong shape. So just like that, I have this entire logo outlined. And you'll notice it's only one shape layer. There's not like three for this part, and that part. It's just one single shape layer. Also, just to let you guys know, you could combine multiple shapes into a single shape layer. So if I had this ellipse tool and I had my path operation set to new layer, and I made a new layer for this eye, and you said there's a new shape for that circle, I could combine this shape layer and the other shape layer I had, right click and select merge shapes. And you'll now notice that there's only one layer for all of these shapes. So now I'll just change the fill into some color, and I now have a vector copy of my raster. So if I try to resize it, the quality will always be good. Now you have a vector that will always be nice and high quality. Now just delete everything but your vector element and go to image and click trim and OK to remove all the excess space. Now save this as a PSD file in case you want to go back and edit your design. Then save your file as a PNG file. And press OK. You can now place this design anywhere, like in your InDesign spreads. Like I mentioned before, shapes are vectors. They're made from paths and retain their quality when resized. In case you forgot, you can click on the Shapes tool icon and drag your cursor to make a shape. If you want to make any other preset shape, right-click on the Shapes icon and choose something. Here's some useful hotkeys for making shapes. Hold Shift while dragging to proportionally size your shape. So you'll notice as I'm using the rectangle tool here, and I hold Shift while dragging, it's going to make a symmetrical square. Hold space while dragging to move an unplaced shape, and then place it to make your shape. With your new shape layer, you can add onto or remove from that shape. To add onto your shape layer, have a shape selected. Hold Shift, click, stop holding Shift, and drag. So you'll notice that the ellipse I just made adds onto that shape layer without making a new separate layer. It's still just one shape layer. To remove from your shape layer, again have a shape selected, hold Alt or Option, click, stop holding Alt or Option, and drag. And that's going to remove from your shape. Press Ctrl T or Command T to transform your shape. So drag a corner to resize, or drag an outer edge to rotate. When you're done with your transformations, press Enter to make the transformation, or Escape to cancel the transformation. Also, you can find the exact measurements of your shapes up here. So width, height, and rotation angle. You can change your units by right-clicking on the numbers and choosing something like pixels or inches or picas or percent. Okay, so back to resizing. To resize from your reference point, which is this circle with a dot in the center of it, hold Alt or Option and drag a corner. You can also adjust your reference point by dragging it or by clicking a reference point location in the top left. Somewhere here, here, or here. To resize freely, hold Shift while dragging a corner. To resize both freely and from the reference point, hold Shift and Alt, or Shift and Option, and drag a corner. You can make adjustments to your shape layer either in the top or on the right with the Live Shape Properties panel. I'll be focusing on this panel because it's a bit easier to see things. To change the inside color of your shape, click on the Shape Fill icon and choose a color. So either from Photoshop's preset color groups or using the color picker to make your own color. To create an outline, click on this hollow rectangle icon and set a color for your outline. So again, either from Photoshop's preset colors or your own color. You can modify your stroke with the options nearby. So on the inner right, you can change the size of your stroke. On the outer right, you can change your stroke option, like a solid line or a dashed line. On the bottom left, you can change where your stroke is, so like inside, in the middle, or outside of your shape's path. On the bottom middle, you can change the cap styles. On the bottom right, you can change the corner styles, and on the bottom, you can change the curvedness of your corner. So either click and drag on one of those corner icons, or type something in. So you notice it curves a bit here. If you want to make adjustments to the shape's path, select the pen tool, have your shape layer selected, hold Ctrl or Command, click on the shape's path, and while still holding Ctrl or Command, click on an anchor point and drag it. Click Yes on the resulting pop-up. As a pro tip, hold Shift while dragging an anchor point to move the path in only 45-degree increments. This helps you make straight paths. So for example, as I'm dragging this anchor point right here and I'm holding Shift, it's going to move only in a straight line. And to clarify, cutout paths and shape paths use the same hotkeys. So Alt or Option to adjust the curve handles, Control or Command to move anchor points, and click on the path to add new anchor points. Text is kind of like a vector. If you resize it, it'll always be crisp and never blurry, except it's not made from paths. Anyways, here's some adjustments you can make to your text. They're mostly the same things you'd find in InDesign. First of all, make sure you have the type tool and your text layer selected. If you want, you can highlight specific words in your text layer to modify whatever you have selected. If you don't have anything highlighted, then any modifications will be applied to your entire text layer, like this. So in the top, you can make adjustments to the font, the font style, if there's any, the sizing, don't worry about this, the alignment, which I'll demonstrate with a text box. So again, alignment, and color. If you look at the right, you'll find the type layer panel, where you can make the same adjustments I mentioned before, like font, font style, sizing, and color, as well as some other adjustments like leading, which is vertical spacing, tracking, which is horizontal spacing, and type options like all caps. You can also apply some layer effects on your text. Go to the bottom right and click on the layer styles icon. They're pretty self-explanatory effects. Just click on the effect you want, make any adjustments, and press OK. I'll go over what I think are the effects you'll mainly be using, which are stroke, outer glow, and drop shadow. Starting off, there's stroke, which creates a smooth rounded outline around your text. And you can make some pretty self-explanatory adjustments, like size, position, opacity, and color. Moving on, we have outer glow, which creates an adjustable glow around your text. Some important adjustments you can make are opacity, which is how clear your glow is, color, which is self-explanatory, spread, which is how much your glow fades, size, which is pretty self-explanatory, and range, which is how to find your glow edges. So if I set the spread to 0 and the range at 100, it's a soft edge. But if I had the range to 1, it'd be a pretty hard edge. Moving on again, we have drop shadow, which creates a movable shadow around your layer. Some important adjustments here are color, opacity, angle, distance, spread, and spread depends on size, by the way, and size. If you want to remove a layer effect, right-click on the effect and select Clear Layer Style. Smart objects are layers that are tied with a normal layer and safekeep that original layer. They preserve the source layer's quality no matter how much a smart object is transformed or adjusted. To turn a normal layer into a smart object, right-click on a layer and click Convert to Smart Object. You'll see a folded paper icon on that layer. That tells you that this layer is a smart object. With smart objects, you can resize your layer and never lose the original resolution. So, for example, if I made a copy of this layer and rasterized it to convert it back into a normal layer, and I resized it, and resized it again, you'll notice the quality drops. But with the smart object, with this smart object icon, you'll see that as I resize it to be really small, then resize it back to be its original size, the original resolution is preserved. The exact amount of pixels from the original layer was kept. If you double click on your smart object's thumbnail, you'll open up a separate document that contains your original layer. You can make edits here, like brush something and save your changes here to affect the smart object in the other document. And actually, I'll just go back in time so it doesn't have that color stroke. As another thing with smart objects, you can add filter effects like blur and noise, and be able to disable, enable, or delete those filters. Also, you can turn a very complex group of a bunch of effects and adjustments into a single layer. This is similar to grouping layers, except you get the benefits of a smart object and be able to make non-destructive edits. To revert any smart object back to its original layer or layers, right-click and choose Convert to Layers. A clipping mask is a way to have a layer only show up within the boundaries of another layer or group. For example, clipping this portrait to this circle will only show the portrait within the boundaries of that circle layer. To make a clipping mask, you'll need two layers that are next to each other in the Layers panel, like this portrait layer and this circle layer. On your actual document, move the top layer to go in front of the bottom layer. Then you can either right-click on the top layer and choose Create Clipping Mask, or have that layer selected and press Ctrl-Alt-G or Command-Option-G. You'll see that the photo is only shown visible within that circle. Everything outside the circle is masked away. Just to clarify, there's no black-white layer mask involved. It's just some terminology. Also, you can move around your clip layer to adjust how it shows up. As a pro tip, you can easily move any selected layer by holding Ctrl or Command and dragging your cursor. You can click and drag your cursor from anywhere, even way outside your document, like right here or right here. And this is because you're disabling the auto select. So if you hold Ctrl or Command, the auto select turns off and you can move the layer you're selecting. Clipping masks are very useful if you want to apply effects or adjustments to only one specific layer. For example, if you want a color overlay for only this cutout and not the entire document, you'd clip that color layer onto your cutout layer. As another example, if you want to make an illustration and you want to draw a shirt on, you can have a separate layer for your shirt and you could clip the shirt layer onto your illustration, so there's no excess brush strokes. Clipping masks also open up some creative design choices, like text that continues a photo, texture that applies to a photo, and pop-up cutouts. I actually want to go over making a pop-out cutout because it's a great graphic element that will elevate your design game. A pop-out cutout is where the details of a photo extend past some boundary, like how this cutout kind of goes past this rectangle and how this subject kind of pops out from this rhombus. There's two types of pop-up cutouts. One that involves only a single photo, and one that involves a photo and a boundary layer. Starting off, I'll go over how to make a single photo pop-up. First, you'll need a photo that you made a cutout out of. Then make a copy of that layer by clicking on it and pressing Ctrl J or Command J. With your copy layer, move it to the back. Delete the layer mask for that copy. This layer will become the background layer. Make a new layer mask for your background layer and press Ctrl I or Command I to invert your layer mask so everything's hidden. Lastly, unmask the background layer. There's a bunch of ways you can do this, like using the brush tool and brushing over, or making a selection and filling that selection with white. Either way, you'll create a very clean and modern graphic element. For the photo and boundary layer pop-up, it's a similar process. You'll need a photo that you made a cutout out of, and a boundary layer that your cutout will pop up from, like a rhombus. Just drag it down. Now make a copy of your cutout image, drag it down, delete the layer mask, and clip that background layer to your boundary layer. Make a selection of the boundary layer by holding Ctrl or Command and clicking that layer's thumbnail. Invert that selection by pressing Ctrl-Shift-I or Command-Shift-I. Click on your cutout layer's layer mask, and with the brush tool and black as your foreground color, brush over the area below the boundary layer. Your end result will look like this, where it looks like this person is popping out from this rhombus.